it's evolved really organically and really beautifully in a way that we would never have predicted, but also I think it's a journey we've been on personally as well to let go a bit, I would say. So there's definitely a lot of letting go of a vision, so holding on to it, but not too tightly that you end up sort of constraining it. So it was, like you said, a natural extension to do a 3 day event after having done that 1 day. So I just knew, just from my own experience of, I used to live in pubs. My parents used to run pubs, so I knew what community meant. I was brought up in an Irish family as well, so there was a lot of
Mm.
music and bonhomie and just joy in lots of ways, lots of hardship too, but lots of joy. But just the power of community, I'd seen it firsthand, and also I wanted to bring that to business really. Like,
Hello and welcome to the True Wealth podcast, where we ask the question, what does it mean to be truly wealthy in this digital age of distraction and disconnection? I'm your host, Betty Cotton Birtles, blues singer, Buddhist, mum of two, and former global shoestring adventurer turned hypnotherapist and mindset coach. I believe that by healing our past and changing our beliefs, we may achieve not only the external successes, the house, the relationship, the money, the impact, but also internal success, the ability to actually enjoy our lives, because it's the joy and happiness that makes it all worthwhile. Join me as I invite friends, colleagues, and esteemed teachers to discuss means of enhancing enjoyment in our lives, following our inspiration as individuals to create whatever it is that lights us up, so that we might radiate that energy out into the world via our businesses or our day-to-day lives, with the intention that all beings may benefit. I believe that this is where true wealth lies. Welcome to the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Today's guest is a very inspiring man in many ways. So today's guest is Laurence McCahill of the Happy Startup School. And I came across Laurence and Colos and their work and the Happy Startup School thanks to Tad Hargrave when he was in Britain. He came to visit Wales and stayed with us here in Wales. And he came and he was so full of this event that he'd just come from. And the event was called the Happy Startup Summer Camp. And he said to me last year, so 2024, he said, Betty, if you do one thing in 2024, go to the Happy Startup Summer Camp. So, wow. I mean, you couldn't really get more, what's the word? Clear, concise than that. That was a high recommendation. Tad, whose ideas and opinions I tend to listen to. So I thought, wow, I better listen to this. I wonder what this event is all about. So that's what I did. In September 2024, I went to the summer camp in Sussex, sunny Sussex. And I took my camper van, and honestly, I am so glad I did. It was an absolutely incredible event. And so I invited Laurence on the podcast to talk a bit about the origins of this event, this place where business owners and entrepreneurs are invited to come for a couple of days and meet as people, full people, bringing all aspects of their personality to the table, and there's dancing and there's food and feasting and there are workshops and there's line dancing in a field and there's a fire and there's dawn walks to nature walks. I didn't actually manage to attend that, but I think I was too busy enjoying the nightlife and the dancing I had, and the opportunity to DJ. Oh, so rich. And as you'll hear in the conversation, I went in with a certain mentality and came out with a different one. But it changed me going to summer camp. It gave me it really gave me a sense of just being seen, I think, and understood. Something about bringing that maybe hippie world of festivals, which is my background, which was my life until I started my business, together with my new passion for helping people to embrace their biggest vision and launch or grow their business to make a real difference in the world. Wow, here are two people, Laurence and Carlos, who are really doing that, who are, running incredible events, because summer camp's not the only one. There's also, yeah, more. I mean, I'll let Laurence tell you all about it. But he's very inspiring, and I'm just so glad that he listened to that initial nudge to do an event, because wow, what an event it is. And I really recommend, if you're in Britain, or even if you're not and you want to meet some like-minded entrepreneurs, business people, just kind of change makers, people who are doing stuff, and hear some really inspiring talks about people who've overcome all sorts of obstacles to create meaning and make a difference in the world, then I really recommend checking out summer camp and all of the things that they do at the Happy Startup School. So I think that serves as a nice introduction. Please enjoy my conversation with Laurence McCahill of the Happy Startup School. Yay. Hello, Laurence. Welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Good to be here on a very, I don't know, dank, I'm going to say, Brighton day. The kind of
Yeah.
air's quite wet and meh.
Oh, the sun's shining here in West Wales for a change. I mean, usually we are seriously grey at this time of year, but there's a bit of sunshine, so it's very nice to look upon on a January day.
Yeah, I'm going to absorb some of that vitamin D from you.
Yeah, well, I'm not in it.
Okay, well,
I'd like to go out in it. That would be very nice. Maybe I'll do that after our chat if it's still shining. We'll see. All right. So, Laurence, I'm excited to have you here because I came to, well, obvious to you, but not obvious maybe to people listening. But I was at your summer camp in, when was it? September. Just
September last year.
right at the end of summer, isn't it?
Yes,
Like,
we're kind of stretching the term summer, but we'll kind of go there. Yeah, it's the colder end maybe the summer, but start of new beginnings as well. That
you
time of year,
had
I really like.
you had really nice weather actually, didn't you? Do you always get good weather for that
Yeah,
weekend?
we always kind of put out the call, and it tends to respond.
It was such a wonderful event. So I think maybe we'll start there if you're up for that. I mean, I just want to hear your story really. So how, I mean, you can weave it into the Happy Startup School. Tell us the story of that, how it came to be, and then a little bit about how did summer camp come into being? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I'd love to say we had a master plan, but like a lot of things, that wasn't in place. We talked a bit about this before this call of our relationship to planning or lack of, more like. So yeah, I. It's probably worth starting with a bit of background. So myself and my co-founder Carlos, we are the founders of the Happy Startup School. We used to work together as founders of a web design agency. Before that, we went to school together. So we've known each other like 40 years, I think maybe a little bit more, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, friends for 40 years, business partners for 20, and on this journey with the Happy Startup School for about 10 or 12 now. And it was about 6 or 7 years into the journey of building our first company, where we both, I think, got to a point where everything was fine. It was all working, like the business was good. We were finding a bit of a groove with the agency. And I personally felt something was missing. It was a bit of a feeling of, I don't know, like just saying that everything's fine was it really. It was fine. It wasn't particularly meaningful. It wasn't particularly exciting. It just got to a point where it sort of plateaued, that company. And I think part of it was we were bringing together a small team to work with us, and we were doing less of the work we enjoyed doing. But also, a lot of the projects coming to us weren't necessarily ones that we felt we were really believing in. There was kind of doing the work, doing a good job, but they weren't projects that we really felt like the world needed necessarily. So it was really hard to get into the nuts and bolts of it without believing in that. And so, in short, we went on this journey to really understand what does it mean to build a business that aligns with who you are, and why do people start things? Like that was my fascination with working with startups, was like, why you? Why now? Like, why this thing? That was, I would ask really annoying questions that no one wanted to answer because they weren't there to be grilled or to be coached. They were there to have us design and build something for them. So there's this kind of nagging frustration, I suppose, that we know there's something bigger out there for us. We know that actually our role is probably better off as like mentors and connectors, and as it turned out, coaches, not just here's a thing, here's an idea, go build it for us, give it back to us when it's all done. So that set us on that path. And then I'm going to say within a year, we did our first summer camp. So it wasn't 3 days, but it was a day. And it was in London, and that was 2013. So yeah, we went from not even having thought of Happy Startup School in December of 2012 to running our first sort of full day event on like 9 months later. Yeah,
Mm.
the rest is history.
Yeah, and history that I'm going to ask you about in a minute. But I love that. So you were doing, you were being contracted to do design work for
Yeah.
companies, which may or may not have been ones that you necessarily believed in the ethos behind. But and so there was a sense of just something missing. And I love that I can really resonate with and relate to that wanting to extract the passion, almost like, why are you doing this? Like, get to the
Mm.
core of someone's story, and
Mm.
how, what motivated them to start it. I'm kind of smiling at the thought of you doing that, in the early days, not having become a coach yet.
Yeah, well, I'd say we definitely probably talked ourselves out of a few projects, in terms of are we a fit for each other, and those kind of early conversations you might have with a potential client. Um, because I think ultimately the language I'd use now is there was no values match there. Like, it was just a kind of clash of values. So I didn't necessarily think in those terms then. And also you want the work, you want to get work in. We had mouths to feed, both young children and also team members to kind of pay the bills for. So there was that pressure too. Um, but more and more, I think it comes down to a point where you can't, that frustration kind of bores up and you have to do something about it. So you can't not ask those questions, or you can't not say what you need to say. And maybe it's sage, maybe it's wisdom, or maybe it's just experience of doing lots of projects where you think, actually, I don't want to go on that path again because I know how it ends up. And I'd love to find more aligned people to work with, and more projects that we feel like we can really buy into and believe in, and therefore give them the best chance of success ultimately. Because yeah, if you don't believe in something, it's really hard to share it to others.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Um, yeah, could you what was that first summer camp like then, Laurence? The one in London. Th-
Well, yeah, going back to the name, we kind of stretched the name a bit because it was September, not July or August, and it wasn't a camp; it was a one-day event. So, yeah, definitely pushed the stretched the sort of meaning of it. It was, well, one way of putting it is, if we hadn't done that, we probably wouldn't have met. So, I really do think it gave us the confidence to think bigger and to think broader. And so, I remember how it ended, which was no one wanted to go home. We had about 70 people there. we hired this amazing place in Hyde Park. It's don't know if it's still there. Well, it might not be the same guys. It was called the Lookout, and it was nestled amongst the trees of Hyde Park, so no one knows it's there. It's really kind of hidden away, and it's like not a nature reserve, but yeah, somewhere they take school children on days out, and we managed to
Mm.
hire it for the day. And so it was, it had the vision of being in nature, but also being accessible. So that was great because we could get people there who lived in London, it wasn't difficult to get to, and also it felt like they were going away. So this feeling of being somewhere different, changing your environment, which has always been key to all of our events, is getting people out in nature, getting them to step out of the conference centres or the meeting rooms or Zoom to meet in person and to have more of an immersive experience. And so, in some ways, it tested out all the different elements of what summer camp ended up becoming,
Hmm.
except the staying overnight bit. But that was something that came from people saying, "We want more of this. We don't want to go home." Like so, it just felt like a real pull to want to take it further. But yeah, in essence, it was a great day. We learnt loads. And we brought in some people that we'd never have had the courage to approach if we hadn't put that out there. So people who'd done TED Talks and people who'd inspired us to get to that point. Just having that simple, we're doing this thing. Do you want to be part of it? It really helped to accelerate the vision.
Oh, that's so exciting. Um, yeah, I just feel very excited thinking about that moment, knowing what it has become, which is, I mean, it was such a wonderful event. Just like thinking back to all the different talks and workshops and the sauna and a lake to swim in and all these really interesting people coming from all over the world and just spending time. I mean, it's ridiculous, really, that spending time with people in a slower way has become
Yeah.
so much of a luxury, or it's so unusual.
Such a rarity. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was beautiful having, I mean, there's this, for people listening, there was this beautiful, oh, it's just beautifully decorated, the whole site, festival, British festival vibes, but with a entrepreneurial spin and a sit down meal and and the DJing. Uh, that's quite a fun addition.
You had your 15 minutes of fame, did you?
I did.
Yeah,
I
that's
did have
incredible.
my 15 minutes of fame. I can't remember, was I DJ's Sweaty Betty? Did I take
That's
that
right.
one? Yeah, I did. Oh God. Um, what somebody from Summercamp has Charlie, in fact, yeah. He's
Mhm.
he keeps telling me every time I see him, because at Alex Louise's events I see him quite regularly, and he keeps telling me how he's got made a playlist of my three songs that I played,
Okay.
my DJ set, and he loves it. So
You got a
yeah,
super fan.
I've got a super fan. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah. So I mean, such a beautiful event. I mean, what was the growth of it like? I mean, what can you tell us a bit about that evolution from that first
Yeah.
day in London to what it's like now? How's that been for you, that journey?
So I mean, it's 12 years time frame. I mean,
12
it feels like
years.
a
Yeah.
lifetime ago. I don't know about you, but anything pre-COVID feels like a
Right.
lifetime ago. So when I look back at photos of that first event, me and Carlos looked very young for a start, and also, yeah, innocent in some ways, like not knowing what we were about to embark on. Just this kind of excitement, naivety, no doubt, because even just doing events, you're always learning as you go. You never know what's ahead. There's always something around the corner that you haven't planned for. But yeah, it's evolved really organically and really beautifully in a way that we would never have predicted. But also, I think it's a journey we've been on personally as well to let go a bit, I would say. So there's definitely a lot of letting go of a vision. So holding on to it, but not too tightly that you end up sort of constraining it. So it was, like you said, a natural extension to do a 3 day event after having done that one day. So I just knew, just from my own experience of, I used to live in pubs. My parents used to run pubs, so I knew what community meant. I was brought up in an Irish family as well, so there was a lot of
Mm.
music and bon ami and just joy in lots of ways, lots of hardship too, but lots of joy. But just the power of community, I'd seen it firsthand, and also I wanted to bring that to business really. Like me and Carlos had, so there's the parallel thing of us building this on the side, but also us really not feeling at home in other sort of settings, networks we would call them. Now we call them communities.
Mm.
Luckily, there are more communities than networks, certainly in my world. But yeah, at the time, it was just very transactional or very stiff or traditional, and that just didn't really resonate with us because we were mates running a business together. We just wanted to hang out with other people and do that too, not have to put on a suit or try and pretend that we're bigger than we are, or try to pretend that we know it all when we don't, or try to make out that we made more money than we have when we haven't. All the things
Mm.
that 15, 20 years ago when we started out was things that you kind of told you had to do, almost put on a front and mask the fact that you were working it out,
Yeah.
versus how we've evolved. The Happy Startup School has been very much, it's the day we sort of said we need help, the day everything changed for us because we were able to then invite in people to help us decorate it or to, um, make it better in different ways. People like Charlie, people, all these teachers and mentors and guides that we've met along this way, that we kind of give them space to do their thing, and that just adds so much to it in terms of a vision that again we never have known because we didn't know those people at the time. So very
Mm.
much people building onto this thing that we created and this space we created to make it their own and also add to it for other people. So yeah, that's been a joy to witness really that happen.
Yeah, I mean, personally speaking, my experience of summer camp was, I mean, it was so moving, and I shared that on the last day. I can't remember exactly. It's not coming to mind the exact circumstances of what I shared, but I ended up in the church. What's that called? The Church of
Church of Fail.
Fail. Do you want
Yeah.
to tell us what the Church of Fail is?
So yeah, the Church of Fail is actually, well, a term coined by our friend Matt Mattison, who ran that session. He's run it for the last couple of years at Summercamp. And Matt, I think first did it about 10 or 12 years ago. So around the time we'd started the Happy Startup School, he was working in a company also in Brighton called Nixon McInnes. And I think it was every month he used to host this session for their team. They were quite a open-minded, sort of pioneering workplace, very democratic, very transparent in terms of how they ran their company, even to the point of how people were paid, how people were recruited was very much a democratic process and transparent process. So they celebrated their culture. And so one of the things that they did, which is Matt's idea, was to have this monthly session where people would step up in front of the congregation, i.e. the rest of the company, but in summer camps terms, it would be the audience, and share something that they messed up at, in the recent past. And it could be to do with work, could be to do with something personal, and to celebrate it, not to sort of be punished for it. And so, yeah, we encourage people at summer camp to do that. And so you were one of those who stepped up and shared something personal to you. And then the idea is you don't sit down until the audience has stopped clapping, which can take a while. So yeah, it's quite a powerful session.
Yeah, really amazing. And I hadn't been planning on sharing anything in that, but I something moved me, and I'd had this kind of dawning realization that I'd kind of come into summer camp with a list of things that I wanted to achieve from being there. I feel a bit bad saying this, but
No, no, not at all.
like it's an investment. It was a business investment to go there, and it's a network. It's an opportunity to network with like-minded people. And so, of course, I'm seeing it as a business person coming
Yeah.
there, and with a certain like list of, and just before we, as you mentioned earlier, just before we went live on the podcast, we were talking about planning, and it's just not a thing that comes. I don't really plan, but I'd been told to plan for summer camp. Make sure you get the names of the people who would be good connections, and seek
Mm.
them out. And there were all these things, and I went there, and I ended up having so much fun that I just discarded this
You
list.
forgot your list.
Well, within the first 5 minutes. I mean, I left it with my phone in the van or something. I was away, and I just having so much fun that my feet didn't touch the ground until the ending ceremony, when I suddenly went, "Oh, crikey, whoops." I was supposed to be operating as a business person. And this, speaking to the thing that you've just mentioned about authenticity, isn't it? And it's really interesting how these days I think more and more, and I don't know if this is just because of the circles I personally move in, or whether it's representative of business as a whole, and I hope it's the latter.
Mm.
But it does seem like people now people are encouraged to bring their whole person
Mm.
to their business. That's what people want.
Yeah.
People want to hear the failures. They want to feel that person. They don't just want a faceless company.
No.
More and more. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think that's
Yeah, I would like to believe that. I'm also conscious exist in a bubble as we all do.
right?
And I do hear stories of very different worlds to mine, and whether it's people who still work in big companies or like toxic workplaces or mistreatment or just where authenticity is not celebrated. So there's a caveat to that in that, yeah, I don't exist in those worlds, so I don't feel well versed to share more about them. But I do feel like more and more people are more comfortable with various things. I don't know if it's a COVID thing, people coming out of that, but boundary setting, people's well-being, and like you said, just people. I think people understanding, and I had a call with one of my groups yesterday. This thing of we're all curious about each other's stories and why people start things and what led people to create their business and what their struggles are. But when it comes to sharing those things ourselves, we're like, oh, not me. I'd love to read yours, but it's really painful for me to share those things, and it's a vulnerable place to be. But I think people understand that it's really important because it's human, and that's what
Mm.
makes us human is those sort of fallibilities. So yeah, it's a journey, I think, to be more comfortable with bringing those two worlds together, which is part of our work. Is it's not about we're not a well-being community. We're not a business community with an overlap of the personal and the work, and that's what makes it different. Really, it's not one or the other. It's all in. So yeah, I think that's why we celebrate it. Is I like festivals, I like business, I like people.
Mm.
Why can't we bring those things into one thing? Why do they have to be separate?
Yeah, and I think that's why. I mean, when I was there, I had this very strong feeling of finally I am home. Like there's this,
Mhm.
I just felt this incredible feeling of like, oh, finally. And I think that what you're talking about, there's that like, well, the crossover, the intersection of business and well-being. I mean, that's what my business is built on because offering healing for people in business just because that's my interest,
Mm.
that has become my niche, if you like. But yeah, something about bringing the whole person and then the business and the vision, that's what excites me. So it did feel like summer camp was the place where that to be, clearly. It felt
Yeah.
very aligned. So I was, yeah. And just to circle back to what we were saying before, because I feel like I left people hanging, this Church of Fail, this is where
Mm.
hearing people's amazing stories and then watching the way that everybody celebrated what they were saying, their fails, and then they
Mm.
got these enormous rounds of applause. And I just had this realization that morning, it was the final morning of summer camp, and I thought, oh no, I haven't done my list of things. And then just this, I stood up and I said that I failed at, you know, networking.
Being a
Um,
business owner at a
Being a
business
business
summit.
owner, I've just like I came here as a business owner and I've failed to operate in that way. I've been too busy having fun, I think I said.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, I've failed to connect with, the right, make good connections or something. And then Floris, I think it was, Floris Coot, is that his name?
Yeah.
He shouted out, Betty, who is it you wanted to connect with? And this is totally unplanned, but then I just said in front of everybody there, I was hoping to connect with this kind of person. And then it was like this magical moment in which I had actually done the thing that I'd failed at.
Yeah. In one like fail swoop.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, fail swoop. Nice.
There you go.
Um, yeah. So yeah, anyway, beautiful experience. And I my heart was just so full after being there. But yeah, summer camp. If you're listening and you like the sound of it, try and make it happen. Go there, experience it. If you're a festival type person, or even if you're not, because quite a few people come and they're not from that background or they've never been to
Yeah,
a
there's a few
festival
who've never
before.
camped before at all. So
Yeah,
camping is quite a big jump for some people. So yeah, that's
but it's
part of it, I
glamping,
guess.
isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, if you've never camped, then it's camping.
It's
But yeah,
camping, yeah.
if you know what camping is, it's glamping. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, we kind of put effort into the experience so people can just show up. And like you said, they don't have to think about
Mm.
anything when they get there. Food's covered, accommodation's covered. They can just be
Yeah,
a kid and
just,
just play and let loose like you
yeah.
did.
And just bring warm clothes. That's the one thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, and last year we had beautiful blue days,
Oh,
sort of blue
gorgeous.
skies and starry nights, but yeah, it did come at
Mm.
the price of a little nip in the air, let's say. So yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
but yeah, it's that
beautiful.
time of year, isn't it, where the sort of season starts to change, and I love those days because they're long days, but can just get a little nippy and a bit of dew in the morning, which again feels like a changing of a season, which again links to the theme of the event, really, which is people looking at new beginnings or even just
Mm.
a new perspective on what they're doing.
Yeah, and just before we move on from summer camp, because I feel like we could talk the whole time about that, but I'd like to ask about other things too. But I do want to just say thank you for bringing Satish Kumar to talk.
Oh yeah,
What a beautiful presence he
amazing.
is to have there. Really, that was yeah, for me personally, that was a beautiful moment because he'd inspired me in my 20s and to get to
Oh,
meet
amazing.
him. And yeah, that was lovely. And
Yeah,
all
that's
the
the
other
beauty of
people.
this is we get to be selfish and meet the people that we've always wanted to meet as well. And Satish is someone we've tried to get for a long time.
Yeah.
And he was always keen, but the stars didn't align. And he lives in Devon, and it was a long journey, and he's not getting any younger. So we thought it may never happen. So it was so brilliant that he was able to make it work. And also he loved it so much that he's coming back again this year, and he's actually moved plans because he originally wasn't able to make it. So yeah, he really really loved meeting everyone and all of the great conversations he had with people. So that was really heartwarming too. Someone of his ilk to come along and feel like he can connect into it. Not just come and do a talk, but really integrate into the experience.
He really was enjoying himself. He's over 80, am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, he's 88, I think, 87 or
88,
88. Yeah,
yeah.
and he's so sprightly and full of life. It's amazing.
Incredible. Yeah, that was a really beautiful moment. I had lunch with him on the last day and told him how his book, No Destination, had inspired me to cycle around the world. So to India specifically. So that was lovely. Um, what was your favorite moment of summer camp, Lawrence?
Ooh.
Put you on the spot.
I think it could have been, yeah, having dinner with Satish and Lana on the Saturday night, I think it was. Yeah, just having quality time with him. It's just someone that I loved his energy and just hearing his stories. And actually hearing him being quite vulnerable as well, just sharing some story about his family in India and how he's perceived by them. He's a bit of a guru to us and anyone in the West who knows of his work. But yeah, you can imagine if you come from a country where, it's a different culture in terms of how we perceive success. And so, yeah, in a developing or now developed country, then how his work is perceived versus how we perceive it. So yeah, I found that really interesting and inspiring. That even someone like him who's that caliber is still sort of feeling like he's maybe let people down in his family, which I'm
Mm,
sure is not true. But yeah, you can't please everyone basically. So
yeah.
yeah, that's what I love about meeting people like him is we put them on a pedestal and then realize we're all the same really.
Right. Yeah. I love that, the shared humanity. And actually, he's agreed to come on my podcast as a result of that meeting. So
Oh, brilliant.
people listening will get to hear him hopefully very soon. So yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So tell us about the other offerings that you have in Happy Startup School. There is altitude,
Altitude.
altitude,
Yeah,
sorry,
it doesn't
altitude. That
it
sounds
doesn't roll
better.
off the tongue. of the tongue.
Tell us about
Um,
that, Laurence.
so yeah, I mean, I would say almost everything we've done has spun off like a spin-off from summer camp. So altitude's definitely one of those things. So at the first weekend summer camp we did in 2014, a guy called Jack Hubbard spoke. He was a friend of ours from Brighton, a fellow entrepreneur, and he did a talk, an amazing talk, which you can still see online on our website called Bucket List Business Planning, which was a really profound talk about his own journey. Really powerful story. His personal journey building his business as well, and also his philosophy around business. And he was about to move to the Alps, and he shared this vision for the place he was moving to. And we thought it was called Dream Valley, this place he was moving to, but he's a great marketeer, so it was just his name for it. And ever since then, we call it Dream Valley because it is an amazing place. But yeah, he shared this vision of this place he was moving to and how he wanted to bring more entrepreneurs out there. And his philosophy, his approach, that talk really inspired us and many other people. And so after that first summer camp, he invited us over just to go and sort of see where he'd moved to, and we did it. Me, Carlos, and Fiona used to work with us at the time, and we loved it. And we wanted to do an overseas event because we'd realised quite early on that this wasn't like a local sort of mission we were on. You know, it was very much a global mission based on who'd followed us and all the amazing kind of messages we were getting from people from our blog and things like that. So this call to step out of Brighton, to step out of England, do something different was just perfect timing for us. So yeah, we went over, and then 2015 was our first altitude. It was a week-long retreat, and part of the goal was twofold. One was summer camp's a lot of work. You said there's a lot of different moving parts. You can imagine all the talks, workshops, logistics is like it's a year-long endeavor to put on. So we didn't want to do more of those because we get emails from people saying, "Come and do summer camp in Australia or America," and we're like, that would kill us like to do it, and it wouldn't feel the same if we just did lots of them. So
Mm.
there was an interest there in creating a smaller event, more intimate, with less structure and less organizing, and doing it in a beautiful place. And so this serendipitous encounter of meeting Jack just led us to the Alps, and we thought, wow, this is just a playground that I'd love to bring some great people to. So yeah, it started from that intention really of somewhere overseas, somewhere that inspired us, the kind of perspective of the mountains, just the scale of them, and also this idea of like we'd learned that all of the best bits of events we'd been to were the in-between bits. They weren't the things that were structured. And again, summer camp has a lot of those moments, like you said, the sauna and the walks and the moments of conversation over dinner or wherever. And so altitude, we set out with the idea of what about if we created a whole week that was all the in-between bits, essentially. So we went hiking, we went rafting, we, watched the stars, stay up in refuges, and just live in nature really for a week with 20 amazing people. And that was the original hypothesis, you might call it, if it's a startup. Does anyone care? Does the idea resonate with people? And luckily it did. And so we invited a few people out there and put a call out to the rest, which brought in some new people. And yeah, we had like a few people from our hometown, Brighton, but someone from Brazil, someone from India, someone from the States, someone from Israel, someone from where else they come from? All over Europe, like Germany and Netherlands. So just this diversity of people that maybe wouldn't have made it to the UK, but there was something about going to the Alps that's like on people's bucket list. And again, linked to Jack's talk as well. So yeah, that happened, and we've done it every year since. So we've done I think 11 of them across the US and Europe over that time. So yeah, it's been quite a
Ah,
journey.
so they're not always in the Alps, in the European Alps.
We did. So we've done it every year, every June in the Alps, but we also took it to Oregon a couple of
Wow.
times in America and did a
Yeah.
similar event in India
In
for a few weeks.
India, did you?
Yeah, we that was called Ashram, but it was the same format.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we went to Chennai and to Goa from that was like 2016, 2018 time. So yeah,
Wow.
we definitely learned a lot doing these events, and that's what it became an apprenticeship really, learning how to hold space, but also build community more than anything. Like that's what's been, useful for us.
Um, on that note, then I have to ask you because actually one of my intentions for this year is to think about I don't want to say this out loud. Feels like I
You
haven't
are
said it.
now.
I'm committing now. No, I'm not committing. It doesn't have to happen this year,
No.
but my intention is in the coming years, in the coming months, running and hosting an in-person event is something that I want to do. So I'd love
Mm.
to hear, and for people listening who might be considering the same thing, what would be your biggest learnings or tips in
For
doing
running
that,
an event,
running an
in-person
in-person
event.
event? Mm.
Um, I mean, the first thing I'd say is, and this is like a loaded thing to say, and I'm sure
Mm.
there's lots of other people who've got things to challenge it. I would just say, from my perspective, it's always been worth it.
Mm.
And the reason I say that is because it's a lot of hard work. It's
Yeah.
always more hard work than you think. Um, I wrote a blog post about this years ago. Maybe I'll share it. You can share in the show notes, just about the things no one tells you about running an event, because there's so many things we learn. Um, I think the key thing is there needs to be a need for you as a organizer, community builder, and not just like, oh, I'd love to bring people together to sell more stuff. And I know this wouldn't be you, but just a deep need for connection, I think
Yeah.
has to be there. Um, because there'll be days when it's going to be a struggle and you're like, why am I doing this again? And the money's not working and it's a bit of a struggle. I had a chat with some friends from Holland today who you might have met at Summercamp, Caro and Yoba,
Yeah.
beautiful couple who are doing an event and I'm helping out with that. And again, they're in the midst of this. They were on the fireside, our podcast last week, and they're in the midst of it. And it's really lovely to witness it. And also, I know how painful it is being in that, where when you're in it, it doesn't feel great and joyful. It feels hard because you're like, how do we make ends meet?
Yeah.
Is anyone going to turn up? Am I going to be the one hosting the party with all the
Yeah.
food out and
Yeah, that's
no
my
one turns
biggest
up?
fear. Like,
Exactly.
I'm sure it's everybody's biggest fear, like just selling those first few tickets that make it worthwhile. That when you know that point, there's a point, isn't there,
The tipping
between,
point where it's actually going to happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, I would say there's various things. I mean, we could have a whole conversation
I'm sure.
about events, but the thing that for me has worked is like finding a venue that you feel really connected to, because the venue for me has always been huge. Like when you find the venue, suddenly everything becomes more clear in your head of what that vision could be.
Yeah, because
Um,
you can see it, I guess.
yeah,
Suddenly you can see it.
yeah.
Mm.
So there's that, and then ideally having a supportive venue that can work with you as you look to grow this thing, so you're not taking all the risk on yourself. There's a way to share the load a bit and for them to buy into it. So ideally, someone who buys into what you're creating understands that you're not a sort of someone who's done this 100 times before and you're just hiring a room or hiring a farm in our case. But
Hmm.
all of the people, the best sort of people we work with are, they're bought into the vision and they get it and they work with you to sort of find ways to make it work, even if it's not your original sort of size or scale.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. And what about anything to avoid?
Anything to avoid?
Biggest mistake you've made, maybe?
Well, probably linked to what I said earlier of trying to do everything,
Yeah.
trying to do it yourself. And it's a tricky balance to strike, isn't it? Because at the beginning, you don't even know what help you need when you're starting out necessarily, or you don't want to impose on people. So, but I think that's why it's so important to share a vision early, which you've just
Mm.
done.
Whoops.
Yeah, oopsie,
Uh-huh.
because yeah, like even talking about a couple earlier, they put this out and saying we're still trying to work this out, and then what they got is like a community effort. They've had so many people support them and want to do things and contribute to it, and so
Yeah,
that
nice.
that vulnerability to just say yes, I want you to buy a ticket, and also I don't know what I'm doing. Like I don't, I'm not perfect. I'm not the expert, but also I know there's something really special that we could create here. So yeah, I think people deep down want to meet more and more in person, I found, and this need for connection is there everywhere. It's getting bigger. So
Yeah.
just just understand that really, that all it takes is an invite and people generally want to be part of it because we're craving these experiences for a reason.
Right. Absolutely. I feel like, and this seems, it's become almost comical now that almost everyone I work with in a certain field, which is, I work with a lot of people in this coaching world, and so many people working online as well. And it seems like I always start with vision, and I think that's where we'll go next. I'll ask you about your other program,
Mm.
which is all about vision. But start with the vision. And so, and I love that. And that goes right back to what you said right at the beginning about, wanting to extract the vision, like what's the motivation for doing something. But when I speak, it just seems that so many people right now have a really similar vision of kind of coming back to nature a bit, building community, kind of building up all these things that we've lost. And yeah, it seems that that's what you're doing.
Mm. But luckily, yeah, like you said, there's a need there. There's a need we have, like me and Carlos. Every event we do, we feel lucky to run because it's what we've created it for ourselves, and luckily other people have loved it. But yeah, as again, I go back to that thing. There's a need there. There's a need there you need to have, and there's a need there that the world has
Yeah.
to connect more and to be in these spaces and to be
Yeah.
out, like you said, in nature and the wisdom that it can offer us.
Mm, beautiful. Okay. So tell us then about um Vision 2020. That's your program that you offer.
Yeah. So that's our group coaching program, which we launched in January 2020. So 5 years ago, almost to the day, we launched this.
Is that
So
why
just
it's
before,
2020?
yes, that's how it started.
Oh,
So there's a
right.
couple of meanings behind the name. Well, there's a few. Vision 2020. So trying to find clarity on what you're looking to do,
Yeah.
and the fact that it's a cohort of 20 people over 20 weeks as well. So it
Mm,
became a constraint that we found useful at the start to just give us a focus of what this thing is that we were creating. And so, yeah, we launched it, as it turned out, quite luckily before the first lockdown hit in January, March 2020, wasn't it, the first COVID lockdown? And so it's sort of weird how we'd created it to be an online program because I'd kind of resisted up to that point. We'd done a few online courses in the past, but as you can tell, I'm passionate about in-person gatherings, and that was my real passion. And Carlos, my co-founder, I think we got to the point where, and it probably was about 2018, 2019, when I talked about us going to India, to the States, Alps, doing summer camp, doing online. All of this sounds great, but it was a lot of work and a lot of stress as well, trying to fill these places, organize trips. You can imagine all the logistics of all that with a tiny team. So I think we got to the end of 2018, realized we don't want another year like that where, we're just helping other people to find their thing and to be happier at work and then kind of burn out in the process. It doesn't really feel like a good place to be. So preempting that, I think we realized things need to feel a bit easier and we need to have something that actually we can deliver on our work because we'd known the value of it. Um, and also, I think we both had a need to support more people in small groups, like one to one or in small groups, because we almost started out doing that with our agency, like working directly with clients. Then we kind of built this big community and did bigger events. Um, the funny thing was, we'd only spent a few weeks of the year actually delivering the work. The rest of it was talking about it or writing or speaking. And so I think I personally had this need to actually see more of the impact we were creating in front of us almost, rather than just hearing these stories from summer camp like yours or hearing stories of connections and collaborations that had happened, a few months later from anecdotes rather than seeing it. And so, yeah, this desire to help a small group of people really sort of progress with their ideas and their visions and in some cases new paths, whether it's a new business, new project or new direction for what they're currently doing. And yeah, that was our sort of our goal with the first one was like, can we find 20 people who want to go on this path together? Um, and will they do it online? Because 5, 6 years ago, it wasn't as obvious as it is now. And then, funnily enough, any doubts people had by the time they'd signed up, then suddenly we're all online, right? March 2020, in the midst of this program, Zoom is our way to stay connected. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm not into online stuff, to this is how we organize
yeah.
and connect in this weird time we're in. So, yeah, that first year or two, where we ran our first few cohorts, in some ways, there was lots of bad things that happened, but the good thing was it helped us to really double down on the program because we had to pull the plug on all the events like everyone. So there was no summer camp for 2 years because yeah, we couldn't put it on, so it made life easier in some ways.
Oh, so you'd already, so when the events all got called off because of COVID, you'd already set Vision 2020 into um
It's emotion. Yeah.
motion, yeah. A
Yeah,
few.
yeah, so summer camp that September was already in the diary. We'd already started making plans for it. So I think we had to make an early call to postpone it because of the risk that we were taking on. So we ended up, I think,
Was it just that
uh,
one year then that was,
no, it was both. So we
yeah.
sort of, I think sort of April time we just pulled the plug and then pushed it back till the next year. And then 2021 there was a chance we could legally host, but it was so last minute and it would have been so. I think maybe Latitude was the first festival that happened that year, and it was like July or something, and we were in September. So yeah, we would have. Could have happened, but it would have been too late to make that call, and we could have, and it
Mm,
wouldn't have been the same experience. That's the thing. There's a lot of hugging at summer camps,
yeah.
as you
God.
probably know. So the
Yeah.
thought of doing a socially distanced version,
Weird.
or even an online version, which there was a bit of a call for that, and I was like, no, it's not gonna happen.
No,
It's not the same thing. So don't even
not the
try and recreate it.
same.
So yeah, so we'd run our first. Well, we had 2 years where we didn't have any events, so we just did, I think, two cohorts a year of the program.
Mm,
And yeah, I'd say it's our main work these days. Like how we spend
mm.
most of our time is supporting the groups and the individuals we work with. So we've had like 200 people come through it now over the last 5 years, and really got to know them intimately because you can imagine over 20 weeks, you really get to know. I'm sure you find this with your programs too. You get to know all the people's
Yeah.
struggles and fears and hopes and dreams and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's a very bonding experience.
Yeah, beautiful. And um, what kind of person is it? Do you tend to be, because obviously Happy Startup School sounds like you're working with people to start up. Is it that people are at the beginning, usually kind of conceiving of an idea? Who tends to come for the program?
Um, so yeah, our name's both a help and a hindrance, I would say, the Happy Startup School, because we don't just work with startups these days. And again, startups, the term for some people, they associate that with tech and digital rather than just any starting a business. And also there's loads of people in our community who maybe were a startup 10 years ago, but aren't now. So that name doesn't always resonate with the right people. I would say the key thing with Vision 2020 and probably all of the events we do, people tend to find us at a point of transition, I would say. And so that point of transition could be, I want to start a business. They could be that they're stuck in a job that they don't enjoy and they want to get out and do something very different. Could be that they're running a business, but they're not feeling it anymore. They're almost the business owns them and they're not really addressing their own needs through the business anymore. And me and Carlos were in that position with our agency. It was on the outside great, on the inside didn't feel as good as it did in the early days. And so that was our original sort of target market when we first launched this was, founders, maybe even agency founders who wanted to do what we did and break out of that service mindset and service business model into something a bit more easeful and a bit more exciting and ultimately sharing their knowledge, not necessarily just delivering work, but actually taking all the stuff you've learned and helping people, contributing to their own journeys. And then we found we got a real mix of people signing up. So coaches who want to launch the first program who maybe have just sold their time. Um, Lots of people who want to do what we did, build community. So maybe they've got an idea and they want to go bigger with it. With some people who come on want to build their influence more. So like you launching a podcast or using their voice more, whether through words or um, video or audio. So a lot of it comes down to people who just want to find something more aligned, more meaningful, more fulfilling, more exciting, and really, like we've talked about already, bring themselves to it. Lots of people, I think, go on a journey, and me included, where you either do what's expected of you or you just fall into something. And then over time, you start to go, actually, how did I get here? And like, maybe this wasn't what I wanted. I've just ended up here by a sea of kind of micro decision. So the goal with the program is really to help people take the reins of their own life and be more intentional and to say, no, if I get to start again, and start again could be the same thing with a different reframe, or it could be a whole new thing. But ultimately, what are the building blocks and the pillars of what I want to create for myself with my own needs at the heart of it? And so saying that I want to work less, or saying that I want to spend more time with family, or I want to have more adventures, or I want to create and make more, or in our case, I just want to have fun and and that be the heart of the events we do. Could that be a thing? Is that possible to make a business in in those terms? And so giving people that feeling of possibility is a huge part of it, I think, and belief that it's possible to be fulfilled at work and or in business, and they can be a bit selfish and say, this is what I want for myself, and let's hope other people want that too.
It is pretty cool, isn't it? When you look at if when you zoom out. I mean, does it still feel cool when you zoom out and look at your business and all
Not if you
the
ask my kids. I'm definitely not cool for them.
do they even say cool? I mean, your kids are teenagers, aren't they? A bit
Yeah,
older
they're
than mine.
teenagers, so yeah, I definitely haven't got Riz. If
Riz.
you know what Riz is. Yeah.
I don't know any
You
of
don't
the
know what, oh,
lingo.
you've got that to come.
No, no,
I
that's
think
to
it comes
come.
from charisma.
Oh, does
So
it?
if you've got Riz, then you're seriously cool. But even by an old person, i.e. me, saying Riz, you're not cool by
No, of
definition.
course. Yeah. You've got no hope. But
No,
it,
yeah, I feel I do sometimes, a lot of the time, I think, just try and have that gratitude, and it's hard because we all get sucked into the day to day, and there's lots of stuff that we do that's everyone else has to do that's boring and you don't want to do, whether it be accounts or
yeah.
admin or just like I think two people didn't show up to a call yesterday. Like, oh, I've moved things around, and that's just life, isn't it? It's not. I'm no different to anyone else. And then I look at my diary and I've got fun things in the calendar, and I try to be intentional about that too. Of I'm going to Karen Yoba's event, and next month we're doing a workshop in Brighton because we want to just get
Oh,
that
yeah.
energy in the room again.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Great.
so being able to say, I want to do this thing, fuck it, basically, and I really hope people
Yeah.
come, but I need it, and so I want it to happen, and that energy I hope comes out because then we have the appetite to put it out into the world, and yeah, for that to be an exchange of energy, not
Mm,
just us or them, but both.
yeah. Beautiful. And you've just started a podcast, have you?
I have, yeah.
What's that? Tell us about your podcast, Laurence.
Uh, so it is my well, it's a collaboration. So I don't know if you met Carl at summer camp. So Carl's my
I think I did.
podcast co-pilot. I don't know what you call them, co-host.
Co-host.
But really, it's his idea. I would say I feel a bit of an imposter saying it's my podcast.
Oh,
It's our
okay.
podcast, but we've
Uh-huh.
come to a kind of shared vision for it. But yeah, it's called 50 WTF, or what the fuck, if we're allowed to swear.
It's
Um,
fine.
and it comes from both of us having turned 50 in the last couple of years. Carl a little bit before me. And really, it's two men in midlife
Is
just trying to
it?
work out what it means to hit this milestone and to look back at our decisions up to this point. And I suppose the premise of the podcast is Carl's life is very different to mine. We're really good friends. He's been a big member of our community for the decade. He's been to everything we've done, got all the badges. He's never actually launched a startup, which is brilliant. That's why I call him our worst ever customer. But he's single. He's not got children. He's not got a
Mm,
house and the responsibilities of a mortgage. I have all of those things, and so we're looking to paint a picture of our contrasting lives and just dig into some of these things that come up and bring in some people to share that with us. So yeah, we're very early stages. We're only on episode 2, but it's been a lot of fun.
am I imagining it, or is it recorded in the pub?
It is recorded in the pub, which is turning out to be a pain in the ass.
I was thinking that.
So we met up the other day to record episode 2. And yeah, even though there's no one in the pub, the music was so loud. So we ended up outside in a marquee, freezing to the point where like this isn't the vision. Let's just spin it till next week. So yeah, I think we might need to go back to our original pub, which was great. But we set the bar of we were going to visit as many of Brighton's 353 pubs as possible
Oh,
whilst
wow.
making this podcast. But
I, s- I love that because that really encapsulates this idea of yours of just like, well, what do I want to do? Obviously,
yeah,
I'm guessing that's something you wanted to do. Nobody like said this is something you should do.
no,
Um,
it'd be a very stupid thing to suggest. But
but yeah,
also, yeah, I again, like I said, I was brought up in pubs, so pubs feel like
yeah,
home to me.
nice.
So there's something nice about the quality of conversation that happens, and
Mm.
a bit like we talked about, really. I just like the energy of being in a room with someone, and especially we're talking to men in midlife, many of whom may
Mm.
never even have listened to a podcast, never even been on one.
Mm.
So I just like the idea of creating a natural environment where people could just be themselves and not feel like they're being interviewed.
Yeah.
And,
Beautiful.
and also good snacks as well, which is a
Uh,
big part of it.
snacks, hopefully not too noisy on the mic.
No, we did have what was it? These little fish and chips. Do you remember these? Did you ever have
Yeah,
these at school? I seem to remember like the kind of little mini fish and chip things. Anyway,
something
Carl
like
managed
that.
to find
Yeah.
those. That was our first episode, was munching on those, which is definitely far
Are
too
they
noisy.
audible? Is it audible, the munching?
There's a few little munches done at the first few seconds, but yeah, managed to tone it down after that.
Oh,
Hey,
brilliant.
as we say, perfection is the enemy of done.
Yeah,
It's out in the
right.
world.
Yeah, amazing. I bet people will love that. So much
Well,
fun.
yeah, we've had a nice response and we're taking our time with it. So it's but the nice thing about it is too, because like I mentioned, Carl's wanted to launch something for years. He's always had lots of reasons not to, some big, some made up. And so yeah, it's been a lot of fun actually helping him to get this out there. And that just the actual shipping of it has been success. Just to, him to be able to put his name to something and saying, I did that. So yeah, it's felt good to support him in that, and for me to not feel like I'm the worst coach in the world because he's never done anything. I'm literally making him do it.
You're literally doing it with him.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Pushing him over the cliff.
After 10 years, that's what it's come to. I love
Yeah.
it. Um, Laurence, I've got one more thing. We've covered everything on my list. Like I say, I'm not really one for planning, so I tend to go free flowing with what arises. But I've got one thing on my list which I was gonna try and find where I've got a scribbled note which I was gonna find the backstory for before the call, but then I
Hmm.
didn't have time to do it. So I'm gonna ask you. And what I wrote down was, did have I imagined this, or did you have a story about um an accident, being in an accident did you damage your back in
Yeah.
an accident in
Yeah. Well
Australia?
remembered. New
Is that
Zealand.
right? New Zealand.
Yeah.
Um, what happened there? Do you want to talk about that? Is that
So this was a long time ago. This was like 25 years ago when I was backpacking.
yeah.
Well, I was away for a year and a half by that point. So me and my girlfriend at the time, now wife and friend, were traveling together. We'd been through Asia 6 months. We'd spent 6 months working in Australia,
Mm.
and then we were on a kind of a backpacker tour around New Zealand. And yeah, we hit a bridge in the South Island in really bad weather, and yeah, basically
The
the bus
bus
was like hanging
hit a
off the edge.
bridge. Jesus.
Yeah, so if it wasn't for a very sturdy concrete bridge, I wouldn't be here today. So yeah, I'm a very lucky man, really. For
Was it very high, the bridge?
yeah, it was. I think I've got a picture. I'm trying to. I think it's probably about 20 meters. So yeah, it would be enough, and it was a raging river below. So
Oh
yeah,
my God.
yeah.
Oh my God. And
So
so
yeah,
it
all I
was
can
it.
remember is this kind of probably the most eerie sound I've ever heard in my life was the bus stopping and just this kind of creaking sound.
Oh my God.
The bus sort of veering off. I mean, one tire had gone over the bridge, but it was more the fact of me and my girlfriend were sat down the front. The windscreen had gone out, the door had gone out. I think I'd landed on top of her, and you could just see the river below, and then just kind of got off and just heard this kind of sort of
You were
screeching
off the
sound.
bus by that point. You managed to
Well,
get off it. You
we
weren't.
first heard it and then got off, and then just looked back and went, "How did we all survive that?" So yeah, luckily no
So
one died.
everyone survived. Oh
Everyone
wow.
survived, and then we went to get our bags, and then I just buckled up because I was unable to lift my bag, and then ended up lying on the road waiting for an ambulance to arrive.
Shit.
Uh, Ended up spending
Um,
a few weeks in hospital.
and and that, if I remember correctly, now I might be making this up completely, but did you say that you're still carrying that injury? Uh,
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. I love when doctors give you advice saying, "Yeah, you'll have this forever, this kind of chronic
is that what
pain."
he said? He or she?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a he. Yeah, it was a he. So yeah, in some ways, and it might be the thing that you read. It was I ended up self-healing really through
Mm.
Pilates. I was lucky that the pub I lived in at the time, my parents' last pub was in Knightsbridge, and that was right next door to the place where they brought Pilates to the UK. So it was a great studio there where I learnt and almost everyone who does Pilates, or certainly did then, had some back injury. It's
Uh-huh.
how it was almost designed. So that really helped to know that if I build a core, if I really kind of work on my core strength, and then that will give me something. And then swam a lot. Ended up so yeah, I ended up finding ways to make it bearable. And then
Mm.
actually over time, I realized, and this is probably why I'm driven to do the work I do, is actually knowing when I'm not aligned, like when things don't feel good. I can feel it in my body. So I've always been very in tune to my
Yeah.
body. Um, and I think a lot of people that take a long time to feel that. But I know for me, it was like a barometer of what's good for me, what's not good for me, because it would just accelerate anything or amplify anything that wasn't right. I would feel stress in my back, and so being in work environments where it didn't feel good would, I think, gave me the confidence and courage to step out of those a lot sooner than I probably would have done otherwise, because
Mm.
it just was debilitating. Because I would literally feel the stress in my whole body, in every fiber of my body, not just in my head. So
Mm.
yeah, that kind of link between mental and physical health was something that I had a very early learning around because of that.
Gosh.
So yeah,
Wow.
but I look back at it as a gift, to be honest. So it's not, even though I do get pain, for me, I know that there's something not right if I'm getting back pain. I don't blame the back. I blame, well, I look for clues and like what's not working for me that I need
Mm.
to address.
Yeah. Nice. Gosh, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I traveling in Asia particularly and having been on all these bonkers bus journeys in the Himalayas and all sorts of things, and just hearing about stories like that, you suddenly realize how close,
Yeah.
you are, like how fleeting life can be, and having an experience like that, I guess, can be a helpful, hopefully can be a helpful experience in terms of, yeah,
Yeah.
pointing, just, yeah, remembering.
Well, it's funny as well because I'm sure you found this, and even going back to India years later, literally seeing buses lying up by the side of the road where they'd, crashed all around Asia. It's not uncommon. So you kind of got a visible sort of reminder of things that have happened there. But you're like, I don't know about you, but certainly being in India, I always feel like everything's gonna be fine because someone's blessed the bus and we're all good, and you know, you're on an adventure. But yeah, there was something ironic about spending 6 months in Asia with probably lots more risk, and then going to New Zealand and having that. And actually, my
Yeah.
wife got hit by a car in Melbourne about a
Oh,
month or two before, so she
oh my
lost her front
gosh.
teeth in an accident.
Oh
I know, it was
no, did
just
she?
a really bad series of events, and both in developed countries. So that was the mad thing, was it wasn't
Yeah.
where we thought it was going to happen. So yeah, life has a way of surprising you.
Yeah, my Buddhist teacher, I remember him saying just briefly, he said that when he used to travel around the Himalayas on those buses as a young person, he'd had to do a lot of that when he was visiting various teachers in the Himalayas, that he used to ride on the roof of the bus because people did that then. I mean, this is in the 70s, I think. He said he used to ride on the roof so that if it did go off the side and down the cliff, he'd have at least a fleeting, like one chance to
God,
leap to safety. But yeah, crikey.
unless you go to a bridge which is a bit too low,
Oh
then yeah,
yeah, yeah.
different kind of problem.
Different problem. Anyway, I was so glad that that bus didn't go off that bridge, Laurence, because
Me too. Yeah,
yeah, for very selfish reasons, I wouldn't be able to come to summer camp, would I?
exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
no. So weirdly, I'm talking to someone we met many years ago on one of our India trips who we talked about bringing altitude to New Zealand. So maybe uh, there's some healing to be had
Yeah.
there one day. It's a long way to go, but yeah, I haven't been back
Mm,
since. So yeah, would be nice to not have it positioned in the way that it is in my mind,
no.
because it
Yeah,
is a beautiful country.
yeah, I've never been, but I have heard. Um,
Mm.
well, I feel like we're coming to the end of our time together, and it's been really lovely to have you on as a guest and to hear about all these different amazing things that you're doing. And it's also exciting, and I feel like, yeah, so inspiring, really helpful to hear about how people have um, built businesses that just work for them, that really are aligned to what they need and want and desire. And you're clearly doing that, and you have done that with Carlos.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm just so grateful for that, and look forward to seeing you again at
Yeah.
an event, maybe even in Brighton. Maybe I'll come down to Brighton.
Yeah. I'd
Um,
love that.
yeah,
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thanks,
So
Becky.
thanks so much for being a guest. And if people are inspired and feeling excited to hear more,
Hmm.
they can go to Happy Startup School website.
Yeah. The happystartupschool.com is pretty much could signpost you to any or all of the things we mentioned. Lots of free resources on there too, like some guides and articles, podcasts, all of the things.
Hmm.
We're not on TikTok, so yeah. If you're on there, you won't find us there, but most other channels, LinkedIn, me and Carlos tend to be most active on. If anyone's on there, feel free to connect to either of us, say hi, or if you're in Brighton or curious about summer camp, come join us and yeah, we can talk more.
Definitely check out Summercamp. I highly recommend it. And altitude sounds really exciting too. So I love that Alps. My dad has lived there for many years, so I
Oh,
feel a
nice.
good connection to the Alps too. So maybe
Yeah, it's
I'll
a
join
special
you there
place. But
sometime.
yeah, Green Valley awaits.
Dream Valley. I love it. All right, Laurence. So thanks so much for being a guest, and
Thanks for having me.
I'll see you again soon.
Take care.
Oh, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I certainly did. And yeah, summer camp really, really deeply touched me in a way that it gave me a sense of belonging, actually, that I don't recall experiencing, in that, all parts of myself felt seen there. This entrepreneurial side with the growth mindset and the desire to be of maximum service in the world, as well as the part of me that was on the dance floor and the part of me that was like cooking breakfast outside my van with dew on my toes. Yeah, it was a very special experience. And yes, I came away from it feeling belonging and also accepted. And not only that, but I could really see myself as being of value in the community and thus the wider world. And so I just felt fully appreciated and seen. And so many people came up to me actually after summer camp and just thanked me for being how I am. And so many that it became a bit like ridiculous, maybe over 5 and probably under 10, just thanking me for my energy. Which is quite an amazing experience, really. And I think really did give me the permission to do what I came up with next, which is, I'm about to tell you, is my unapologetic masterclass. I came up with this concept for a class that's all about bringing all aspects of ourselves to our work. And it's called Unapologetic. So many of us feel so uncomfortable to bring the quirkier aspects of our personalities to our businesses, to our work, to the table, to life in general. But wouldn't the world be a better place, a more interesting place if we did? And also, you would find, if you were able to do that, and maybe you are doing that, and if so, I salute you. But you'll find that people, when you bring yourself and you're willing to be seen in that way, people actually see you. And what happens when they see you? They feel a connection with you. They want to work with you. They want to be around you. They want to feel more of you. Or they don't. And if they don't, then that's fine. So you can become divisive. And that's really what we want to be, particularly in this online business world. We need to be divisive because we need to filter out the people who we don't have a good connection with in order to find the ones we do. So the workshop's called Unapologetic. It's on the 6th of February 2025. So if you're listening now in winter 2025, come along live. If not, drop me a message on any platform with the word unapologetic and I'll get the workshop to you. It's free, it's 2 hours, and I'm going to include a parts healing demonstration, which I'm very excited about because I haven't done it before in a group like this, in a free group experience. So many thanks again to Laurence for a wonderful conversation. I hope you're feeling inspired. And if you feel like you want to be more unapologetic in your business, then check out my workshop linked in the show notes. I'll catch you next time.